Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas.
Hello, dear listener. This is Brett, and welcome back to the Online Great Books podcast. Today, Scott and Karl will begin a discussion of Isaac Asimov's 1951 novel, Foundation. And because they really hit the ground running in this one, I just wanted to do an overview of what Foundation is before we get started here. So I've gone to infogalactic.com, and I'm just going to read to you for a little bit, as it is quite possible many of you may never have read this. Foundation is the first novel in Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy, later expanded into the Foundation series. Foundation is a cycle of 5 interrelated short stories first published as a single book by Gnome Press in 1951. Collectively, they tell the story of the Foundation, an institute to preserve the best of galactic civilization after the collapse of the Galactic Empire. Now, I feel like this introduction is worth our time here because you could get 10 minutes into this show expecting a far off in the future space adventure, and you might find yourself going, wait a minute, I think this show is just about tobacco use and chickens now here on Earth. So a majority of the discussion is spent on the first of these interrelated short stories. It is called The Psychohistorians. I'm going to read a little bit more. Set in the year 0FE, Foundation era, The Psychohistorians opens on Tantor, the capital of the 12,000-year-old Galactic Empire. Though the empire appears stable and powerful, it is slowly decaying in ways that parallel the decline of the Western Roman Empire. Hari Seldon, a mathematician and psychologist, has developed psychohistory, a new field of science and psychology that equates all possibilities in large societies to mathematics, allowing for the prediction of future events. Using psychohistory, Seldon has discovered the declining nature of the empire, angering the aristocratic members of the Committee of Public Safety, the de facto rulers of the empire. The committee considers Seldon's views and statements treasonous. Oh, I'm not going to give too much away. So that sets the stage. So make sure you check back next week for more conversation about Foundation. Thank you for listening. Thank you, as always, for your time and attention. Here we go.
I'm Scott Hambrick.
I'm Karl Shute.
And now you know what we sound like. This voice is Scott's voice. That other one must be Karl's.
This is Karl.
Yeah. We're going to talk some weirdo fiction today.
Yeah, science fiction.
It's a crying shame that we have to do this because the weather is nice. There's a cloud cover. There's a little bit of a breeze. The humidity's under 90%. I mean, the last few days have just desiccated me. Man-killing hot. How have you enjoyed it?
It's been 100 degrees. Yeah, I dug a big ditch and then I filled it in.
I like Cool Hand Luke.
Well, no, I put something in there before I filled it in.
What's your dirt doing in Melissa's ditch?
It's covering up a power line. I sure hope works now that I buried it.
It'll work.
I was taking off, there's another skill I need to learn today. So I was removing a license plate and putting a new license plate on. And there are 4 bolts holding the license plate on. Screws, I guess. And they're stuck. They're rusted and they're stuck. And 3 of them snapped off. Just snapped off in the hole.
Yeah.
So I hear that there's tools to get these things out. So I have to go drive an illegal car and go buy the tool. Well, I could just hang it on there with 1 bolt.
Yeah. If you were a native, that's what you would do. Maybe duct tape it to the back window.
Oh, gosh. Just so rusty. Because where I used to live, there's salt on the road half the year.
Yeah.
I think it's like a drill bit that you screw in and then that you drill in and then you go the other way and it takes the bolt out.
Well, there's a thing they call an easy out.
Uh-huh.
You'll take a drill bit and drill a small hole in the fastener that's stuck in the car. And then you'll take the easy out, which has a left-hand twist, and put it in that little hole, And when you turn it counterclockwise, it will get tighter and tighter in that hole and grip that broken stud harder and harder. And then hopefully you can back that thing out of there. Get yourself a can of penetrating oil, too. Don't get in a hurry. Shoot it with a little penetrating oil and go eat a sandwich. And then shoot it with the penetrating oil again. And then go eat another sandwich. And hopefully it'll come right on out of there.
Yeah, duct tape sounds better.
Yep.
So anyway, that's the adventures of me. So what are we reading this week?
One Isaac Asimov, Russian invader, wrote this book called Foundation. And Karl said we needed to read it. And I read it. I read it, 1986 or something like that. Maybe before. Been a long, long time. I enjoyed it, but I don't know what all the to-do is about.
The reason I picked it because I think it is it's a good bad book.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. So it's like its worldview is bad, but he does a good job of presenting that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's enjoyable and breezy, and I love that everybody smokes in the future.
Yeah, I do too.
It doesn't occur to him that there won't be smoking in the year 50,000.
There'll be more.
Of course people will smoke.
There's no space travel without smoking.
Right. Without smoking, you're just content to plant beans and sit in the longhouse, right?
Right. And you watch all those guys with the flat tops and the white shirt with the black tie, in Mission Control in like 68. No, 69. They're just burning those Pall Malls, man.
Mm-hmm.
They're operating their slide rule with their nicotine-stained fingers, drinking Folgers.
Stephen Ambrose makes a comment about that in his book about D-Day. The English had to stop for tea. They didn't make it as far on the first day as the Americans did, who were fueled by cigarettes and coffee.
Right. Yeah, I used to, when I had to do calculus homework or whatever, chew a little Red Man Golden Blend. The nicotine is mighty good.
All right. Dear listener, I do not currently smoke. I very rarely smoke, which doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, but it's like every 4 years. But that Red Man is like cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
I have done it twice in my life, and that was enough. Did it once, and then had to try it again.
Did it?
To see if it really did to me what it did to me, and it did. And
he did some Red Man. Well, I got to ask what you do. Did you chop it up on the lid of a toilet tank and snort it? What did you do exactly?
No, it was my friend from Hereford, Texas.
Hereford, yeah.
Had some in Hereford.
Yeah.
Yeah, just cheek and gum, right?
Yeah.
Spit it out into a cup.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It's really great. Yeah, that's
you could see time.
Yeah, the tip of your nose vibrates. That stuff is pretty awesome. It's cold, or not it's cold, it's hot. It's cooler today. Last Saturday, we put our meat chickens out on the pasture. They were babies, I weighed them today. They're way behind. It's just so hot, they don't want to do anything. They're in the shade. They're as comfortable as you can be. As a chicken can be, but man, it's just so hot. They're eating about half of their scheduled ration, and they're drinking much less water than they were. They don't have the same kind of digestive system we do. They need a lot of water to process all that grain, when they're eating. So they're just drinking enough to overcome the evaporation, from panting. But they're way behind. I'm very concerned about the average daily weight gain of my chickens, Karl.
I don't know. Maybe if you averaged out the first batch, then who gained weight so quickly, and then the next batch, which isn't, maybe it'll be okay.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. We've been taking feed off of them at night. I think I want to swap it. I think I want to take the feed off during the day and see if they'll eat more at night. I don't know. So this book, I don't know. You say it's a bad book, and you don't want to tell people why it's bad, but I think you need to tell us why it's bad.
Oh, we'll get to it. It's a seductive book of the glories and possibilities of science and it suckered me in when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think it's dangerous. So if you look at, I don't know, do you have a paper copy?
No, I have a Kindle-fied version of the Bantam paperback.
Well, all right. So this is on page 1 or page 3. Hari Seldon, born in the 11,988th year of the Galactic Era, died 12,069. The dates are more commonly, yeah. He's born to, again, with the tobacco, born to middle-class parents on Helicon Arcturus sector, where his father, in a legend of doubtful authenticity, was a tobacco grower in the hydroponic plants of the planet. He early showed an amazing ability in mathematics. Okay, so the hero is a mathematician. Undoubtedly, his greatest contributions were in the field of psychohistory. Seldon found the field little more than a set of vague axioms. He left it a profound statistical science. Okay, so we have this thing. This is the thing that's driving the plot. Psychohistory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, psychohistory is psychology and history. But it's not a study of history. It can be used to predict movements in the future. And what it can do, it can't do it on the individual level. If you're sitting across from, I don't know, Salvor Hardin, you're not going to be able to predict what he's going to do. But if there's 1 million of them, you can. In the aggregate, they become more and more predictable.
Do you believe this?
Do I believe this?
Yeah, not in the Asimov style, but do you think that the behavior of large groups of people is understandable and predictable?
Do I think it? Yeah, probably. But it maybe shouldn't be predicted.
Yeah.
So what you can do, so if you get enough people and you average out their activities, you can achieve scientific certainty about what they're going to do. So Aristotle in Nicomachean Ethics says that ethics it is a science, but it is not like math, because it says things that are true for the most part, in general and for the most part, something like that. Well, Hari Seldon in the novel takes it and makes it predictable 100%. If you have a galaxy empire with, I forget how many people he says are in it, say it's 50 trillion. If you have 50 trillion people, some ridiculous number, then you could predict what they would do. The more and more humans you have, the more they act like atoms or an ideal gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's going to be behind the story. It's an interesting idea, and it was very interesting to me as a young man. We can wait a little bit. I don't know. We can get in the story and then see how maybe it's dangerous. So the story is the Galactic Empire is failing. It's falling. It was about time. Do you think there were accelerationists?
Oh, I'm sure. That's proper. And if you've got 50 trillion people, then it would be a necessity that there would be accelerationists.
Yeah, there's probably a formula. The rate of acceleration of accelerationists over time is a function of population density.
Yeah.
You get too many people, you're going to get this many people who want to burn it all down. But then you could predict it, and then you could counteract them, because you would know where the accelerationists are going to happen. I think we ought to get some of the story, and I think, dear listener, you're going to be thinking already of some things. You're going to be thinking of Facebook mining your data. You're going to be thinking of Google sending you, knowing all of your browsing habits and sending you certain things tailored especially for you. Because, you see, they can predict you in the aggregate.
Yeah. In that case, are they predicting you, or are they putting you in a Seldon box where the number of choices presented to you are narrowed, and then they later claim that they predicted your behavior? But the truth is they put you in a pipe, and there's it empties out over there, and that's where you're going to go.
Yeah, so you say a Seldon, what do you call it, a Seldon box?
A Seldon box.
All right, well, okay, so Hari Seldon is the guy behind the scenes, the guy who comes up with this science. The action opens with a young psychohistorian coming to see him, Gal Dornick. The names are ridiculous, but coming to Trantor, the capital of the universe, which is this planet where there is no sky, there is no grass, there is nothing.
Gotham.
Yeah, it's just the urbanization taken to its extreme, where the only place that there's grass on Trantor is where the Emperor lives. It reminds me of The Naked Sun, the other novel that we read, one of the other novels we read by Asimov. Asimov's, we've done 2 of his or 3 of his?
I think Naked Sun's the only one we did.
So if you look at, in my book on page 19, it's right before the chapter 4, this description of psychohistory. Psychohistory is that branch of mathematics which deals with reactions of human conglomerates to fixed social and economic stimuli. Implicit in all these definitions is the assumption that the human conglomerate being dealt with is sufficiently large for valid statistical treatment. The necessary size of such conglomerate may be determined by Seldon's first theorem. A further necessary assumption is that the human conglomerate be itself unaware of psychohistoric analysis in order that its reactions be truly random. Okay, so there's another bit about psychohistory. If people know that you're predicting them according to mathematical methods, they'll screw with you.
Right. If they know they're being measured.
If Twitter shows me ads, I might start doing perverse things and screwing with Twitter. Liking strange posts. Like, I think there was an Onion story a while back about somebody, about the Pandora engineers being very upset trying to figure out this one guy who would just dislike everything they served him.
Right.
Every bit of music.
That's because they were serving up slop.
No, the key is you have to dislike the good stuff too, so you mess with their prediction algorithm.
People are trying to do this, right? We have predictive models. The CDC has run its model, and we believe that blah, 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 blah. Right? There are people that try to create these simulations and models and try to figure out what's going to happen to interest rates or transmission rates of viruses or whatever. Like we're trying to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the idea that the subjects can't know what's being said to them or it won't work. Our own beloved head of the head of the NIH?
Oh, yeah.
Claims that he said all the things he said about... If I talk about this podcast will get downgraded and banned, won't it?
Yeah, it's fine. Who cares?
So there was some medical intervention that, I'm going to call this guy Smouchy, that Smouchy said that would work but didn't actually work. And Smouchy admitted that he moved the goalposts because he was trying to influence the population to do behaviors. And they could not know that what he was saying was false because then it wouldn't influence their behaviors in the right way.
Or is that... Yeah. I think that's Plato's noble lie. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's his attempt at it. He can't do anything noble. He doesn't know what the good is.
Smouchy's kind of
a bathhouse.
Well, I mean, he's only 5'2", so
right.
There's limits to how far he can go. Yeah, so people do try to do it. I don't know if they got the idea from this or if this rises out of the idea itself. So Gal Dornick, whatever his name is, meets with Hari Seldon. It's page 21. Before you're done with me, young man, you'll learn to apply psychohistory to all problems as a matter of course. All problems can be investigated, in other words, in terms of this new science where everything can be predicted. Seldon says, well, there's a 1.7% chance that I will be executed. He's got it all worked out. Well, okay, so the empire is going to fall. And it's either going to be 50,000 years of darkness, of unenlightened barbarians, or it'll only be 1,000 years. And so the great Hari Seldon says, page 33. Okay, so he's being investigated by the government. You quibble, Dr. Seldon. Can the overall history of the human race be changed? Yes. Easily? No. With great difficulty. Why? The psychohistoric trend of a planet full of people contains a huge inertia. To be changed, it must be met with something possessing a similar inertia. So, if you're going to change the trend of the empire falling...
Well, you can't. You can just kind of deflect where it falls, and how it falls.
Right. Yeah, you're falling off the horse. You're going to fall on your neck, on your head, or on something else.
Yeah, he's trying to get civilization to tuck and roll.
So he engineers getting himself exiled to a planet called Terminus, way, way on the outside of the galaxy. And he's going to take a bunch of people, ostensibly to make an encyclopedia.
Yeah. Very clever. Do you think that Asimov saw the end of an empire and that's what prompted him to write this? Or is this just a laboratory? I read in the introduction that he had read Gibbon a couple of times. It was inspired to write this after reading History of the Fall and Decline of the Roman Empire.
I think that's reasonable. He's not a boomer, but it's boomer sci-fi.
Yeah, he influenced him. Better Living Through Science, all that, quackery is in here.
Yeah, shorten the Dark Ages, the so-called Dark Ages, make things better. Yeah, I think it's based on Gibbon. I think his understanding of religion, which we'll get to, is Gibbon-esque.
He uses the word imperium. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Karl liked that one. Karl adopted that after reading Gibbon, just like Asimov. You guys are soulmates.
Oh, I don't doubt it. That's a problem, though.
You share a spiritual nature with Asimov.
I know. I've read a bunch of his stuff. I don't share his sideburns.
Good. God, he wrote so much stuff.
Oh, my dad had a bunch of his books. It was it's what you read. All right. So if you're living in the end of the empire, what do you care about the Dark Ages to come?
Well, is this a hypothetical you or is this me?
It's a hypothetical you, but it could also be you.
Okay. Well, I think for Asimov and so many people, they have an affinity for what they see as progress. They fear not having these things that they see as conveniences or comforts. I did an interview with a guy the other day for his podcast. His name's Timothy Kinney. You can go find it. It's like 4 hours. We talked for like 4 hours. He's from Boston, and I'm not. I mean, he might as well have been from the Ukraine. We're from different worlds. He can't understand why that I would want to go and do the things I'm doing right now. Yeah, I mean, he wants to live in his megalopolis and, get it on his phone and have Uber Eats bring him a sandwich and have the telescreen put stuff in front of him. Like to do something different, they just can't imagine it. I think it's fear. Now, me, I sort of welcome the Dark Ages. So I understand, I believe the so-called Dark Age that we had, after the fall of Rome wasn't all that dark. And I don't think it will be again. Well, wait a minute. That's not necessarily true. Everything that we have is either an agricultural product or a refined mining product, and all of the iron ore and the gold nuggets and all that stuff that you could find when you're walking around or with a shovel, all that stuff's been taken and used. We screw it up this time, and we may not be able to make the machinery necessary to get deep enough to get the ores you need to resurrect it.
Mm-hmm.
There was tin that could be mined in England or in Britain, that the Romans could use, and they could mine it with a shovel. That's all been used up. So, you lose some technologies and you drop the ball this time, probably won't get back. There'll be some enterprising people that find a landfill and tunnel down in there and get some stuff out of it and, and refine it and use it. But I think it's going to be tougher. But that's okay. I don't really care. I was in that interview thing. I didn't say the words, but I was advocating for some sort of a distributist agrarian system. And the interviewer, Timothy, who was a great discussion partner, I think he sees that as impoverishing everyone. I think they would have less legal tender, but they're still going to have food. They're going to have shelter. They're just going to have less disposable income. And Hamburger thinks that's pretty good. So there. But if Asimov wants his disposable income, if he wants his ease, if he wants what he sees as conveniences and is ignoring the knock-on effects from those things, then those people will fear a dark age.
Well, it's how you measure wealth. Having a mortgage you can leverage that you can do reverse mortgages on. Are you really wealthy? Do you have money?
No.
You can have velocity of money in your accounts.
Everybody's worried.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think. It's the old joke: quit show business and leave all of this.
Right. I like it.
Yeah, it's
folks are like the fear of a recession is kind of the same thing, on a smaller scale. You should only fear a recession if you're levered up and you're afraid you can't make your payments. If everything's paid for and stuff slows down, as long as you can get groceries, who cares? Who cares? It's the leverage. It's the falsehood. It's the, it's the fake money. It's the fake wealth. It's the, it's the sham wealth that gets affected by the recession. So I don't care really. It shakes all the pretenders out.
Yeah, I want to read what, however, Hari Seldon says. This is on page 40 of my edition. It's like 8 paragraphs in Book 1, Chapter 7. He says, none of the quadrillions, that's more than trillions, none of the quadrillions living now among all the stars of the galaxy will be living a century from now. Why, then, should we concern ourselves with events of 3 centuries' distance? I shall not be alive half a decade hence, said Seldon, and yet it is of overpowering concern to me. Call it idealism. Call it an identification of myself with that mystical generalization to which we refer by the term humanity. I marked that. I thought, well, that's awfully interesting. An identification with that mystical generalization to which we refer by the term humanity. What is the motive of the action of the book? Is it must serve humanity. It's better for humanity that there be a galactic empire than that there not be. It's not better for Bob and Jim and Sally necessarily, but it's better for humanity. Yeah,
I've gotten irritated about...
You get the difference there?
Yeah, there is no such thing as humanity or society. I gripe about that a lot. No such thing as society. It's stupid.
Well, but in the aggregate, Scott,
right.
There is humanity, right? The people that will act in a certain way to stimuli and...
This is that old utilitarian soft shoe stuff, how do we help people on aggregate, and that people on aggregate we will call humanity. I understand, but meanwhile, I know exactly who we are and what we need around here. And then our managerial overlords are over there figuring out what's best for humanity and telling us we'll own nothing and we'll be happy. And it's great. It's super dangerous. When these people who want to do things for humanity don't know what the good is. Oh, gosh. What a disaster. What a disaster. Now, unlike the sort of central planners that we have now, by the way, we have the most tightly controlled, centrally planned economy that has ever existed with the Federal Reserve. They fix the price of every single thing in our economy by controlling the interest rate and printing money at will. This is a centrally planned government economy. Yep. This is a communist economy more than...
But no, Scott, right. Capitalism.
Whatever.
They told me that we're capitalist.
In Seldon's world, he thinks that there are these forces that, that kind of push the stream of history around, and that if you understand the forces, you can figure out where the stream is going to go. But Seldon doesn't really try to manipulate events too much, though. He's just put a few things in motion that will make these key people at important times in history, make good decisions, or actually no decision in most of the time. That's not what we have now. We have people that try to manage everything.
If we had actual psychohistorians in charge, they wouldn't impose an interest rate increase on you. You wouldn't see it coming. There would just be no more choice but to do this certain thing.
Right.
We have to do it. But I think they do things like that in rhetoric. That's the rhetoric of the politicians. We have to do this. We have to support the current thing. We have no choice. You have to, okay, so your gas bills are going to be higher and you're not going to have any food because there's going to be food shortages. But we had no choice. We had to do this thing.
The economy.
Yeah. If Seldon were actually running things, you wouldn't know. They wouldn't tell you that you had to do things. It would just be...
God, that sounds good.
What? That you have Seldon in charge?
Yeah, I mean, Seldon's in charge anyway, but you don't know. Not knowing would be better.
Yeah, and there'd just be... Yeah, so he says, there's an interesting... I have some quotes marked. I have notes because, I take notes. This is on page 43 of the Bantam edition. Chen, who's the emperor, or at least who's in charge. Chen knew I spoke the truth. He's a very clever politician, and politicians, by the very nature of their work, must have an instinctive feeling for the truths of psychohistory. I actually think that's right, and I think that's okay. That when you read, what's the book that comes after the Nicomachean Ethics?
Politics. Yeah,
Aristotle says politicians need to study the soul, the psyche.
I buy that.
So that you can know how to influence people, that you can steer them by the rudders of pleasure and pain. Just another way Aristotle talks. I suppose the difference with Seldon is the goal. I mean, what's the goal for which he's steering them?
He's trying to preserve. This isn't said, but he's trying to preserve maybe technical know-how, maybe that. Meanwhile, trying to not get everyone killed.
Yeah, so it's kind of a negative telos. We need to have small-scale nucleonics.
Right.
That people can use, their washing machines and stuff. So I was thinking as I got to page 46. So you're going to establish two foundations, one at one end of the galaxy and other at the other end. You have to read further along to see the other foundation. There will be successors, and they will be able to apply the final touch in the scheme and instigate the revolt on Anacreon at the right time and in the right manner. So there's going to be people plotting and doing things. And what it made me think of was Edward Bernays' Propaganda, where he says at the beginning of that book that, without a doubt, the more intelligent must rule the less intelligent. And the way that they do this is by unseen methods, and propaganda is one of these methods.
I talked to...
Is this killing you? Is this book too much?
No, I enjoyed it. I talked to Seminar Group 83 last night, and we talked a little bit about Aristotle's natural slave. One of the things about his arguments about the natural slave, number one, he's right. Number one, he's right. Number two, him being right, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. So for the listener who might not know what he says about this, it's on page 2 of his book Politics, book 1, page 2, Aristotle's Politics. He says there are these people that are really good at managing things. He talks about husbandmen, and they're good at marshaling resources. They're good at making decisions. They're good at managing things. And then there are people that aren't good at managing things. And he says they might not be good at it for a whole bunch of different reasons. Maybe they're not very smart. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe it's just not in their nature. They don't like it. It doesn't come natural to them, whatever. But if you've got two different kinds of people, to simplify, you've got a group of people that are good at managing things and making decisions to an end, and then a group of people that aren't good at that. That has a political consequence. So it seems clear to me that there are people that are good at making decisions and people who are bad at making decisions. So now we have to come up with a political system. The people who are bad at making decisions probably shouldn't get to vote. But remember, some of the people that are bad at making decisions don't even want to. They don't care. They won't get out of bed for it. They won't read up on the issues. They don't turn up at the polls anyway. Right? So those people are clearly natural slaves. They are going to be governed. They don't even vote. That's me, by the way. They don't even vote. So, no matter how you turn it, whether you like it, what he says or not, the consequence is there is a class of people that ends up being governed and having no say in the direction of, the macro direction of their lives. And Seldon's world is nothing but natural slaves, except for, every now and then there's one guy, at the vertex of history that can stage a little bloodless coup and at one of these Seldon events and take the correct fork in the road or whatever. The natural slave.
Yeah, you could translate that different ways. The natural servant, the natural employee, which is not to argue for. I mean, you can, dear listener, you can go read it yourself and decide how mad you want to be at Aristotle for telling you something that's true. That doesn't mean that one ought to have chattel slavery as, say, in 1855 Alabama. That doesn't mean that. It just means that, there's people that aren't going to, that would be better for them if somebody else were making their decisions.
Right. Like 4-year-olds. I don't understand why the concept is so upsetting to people. But anyway, for Asimov, actually, we don't know what Asimov believes, right? He's writing this stuff out. I don't know what he believes. But for the purpose of this book, almost every single person is a natural slave. Even the people who are pretenders to power, these weird barbarian kings or regents and so on, even they don't really get to make decisions. Does that seem right?
Well, the decisions have been constrained by the master, the genius, for 1,000 years previously. I like the description, so when you get to part 2, the encyclopedist, I like the description of the fall of the empire. It starts cracking in the periphery. It's straight out of Gibbon. As soon as you can't count on the Legion showing up, you may still say something about the emperor, but it's done. Mm-hmm. Things quit working. They lose nuclear power because they don't have anybody.
Are you in Texas still boiling your water?
Are they under a boil order?
Yep, some of them were.
I hadn't heard.
Yep.
Yeah, things just stop working, and there aren't the people around who can fix it. And eventually they forget that it's even possible to fix it. And it's just, we have these things that our ancestors gave us, and eventually they'll run down. And, nobody knows nuclear physics. What's that?
That would be awesome.
Like, I'm continually amazed by the fact that the Romans had concrete. Marcia was saying in the note to us, they had underwater concrete. Mm-hmm. And then it was lost. Who was the last person in the empire that knew how to do concrete?
Some guy named Jesus.
It's like, I don't know, in Chicago, there were these buildings with these wonderful plaster ceilings. Intricate. You couldn't find anyone to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to do that. Lost art. You'd have to rediscover it. And so it's not necessarily the weirdness of the emperors that makes empires fall. It's just that people don't learn the crafts that they needed to learn. And they just forget how to do stuff.
Yeah, I'm having a house built right now I know something about that. I'm not a complete novice in terms of construction and whatever. So I'm out there on the job site, stomping around and looking at stuff. And, these framers, they don't follow the nailing schedule. They don't look at the framing details and, execute according to the plans. They're doing what they've been shown how to do until Hambrick goes out there and tells them to take it apart and do it like the plans say and follow the nailing schedule. If I'm not there on the job site, that's not what you're going to get. If you buy a tract house, they're going to put together a facsimile of a house, and you'll walk in and you'll think it's a house, but it's not. It's a temporary shelter that they built and you paid a lot of money for. And it's not good. There are these houses you could buy kits from Sears and Roebuck, and they would put the kit on a flat car on a train and send it to your town, and you'd go to the train station and pick up this kit, and there was a book that came with it, and you could build yourself a Sears Craftsman house. And those houses are highly sought after still to this day. No one is going to be paying premium prices for a 2022 tract house in 100 years. They won't even be there. Mm-hmm. They won't even be there. So we're there. That's what I'm saying. Too long, don't read. We're there.
So we need to set up a foundation somewhere?
Nah, let it go,
So you get a character, we have a mayor. So it turns out the encyclopedia that was just a ruse to get the thing started. Nobody cares about the encyclopedia. And the mayor of Terminus takes over the foundation. He has this interesting name, Salvor Hardin. What is it? It's like savior, tough guy.
Yeah, that's funny.
But so there's this description of the fall of the Empire. This is on page 67. I like their curses. One of the characters in this book actually says "Great Galloping Galaxies."
Yeah.
God. This is 1950s science fiction. It's fantastic. Great space, Hardin felt annoyed. What is this? Every once in a while, great space. Someone mentions emperor or empire as if it were a magic word. The emperor is thousands of parsecs away, and I doubt whether he gives a damn about us. And if he does, what can he do? What there was of the Imperial Navy in these regions is in the hands of the Four Kingdoms now, and Anacreon has its share. So you'll know things are really bad when laws are not enforced. Yeah. Pass all the laws you want, but nobody's going to enforce it. As my little adventure when my car got hit by an uninsured motorist. Nothing happened to him.
Right.
He got away with it. The fine is less than what he would have paid. He's doing it right at the end of Empire. I'm the guy that's screwing up by being insured and following all the laws.
Right. That's true.
And when enough people figure that out, that playing by the rules is stupid, then it's done.
It's happening.
I still fill out the forms.
Chomp.
Yeah, so Salvor Hardin has this motto, which I forgot was Asimov's. I think I've heard it in other places. Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Which I'm not sure if it's true, but that's the way the Foundation works. They never do anything directly. They never fight any wars. It's all sneaky. You keep saying which means I want to pause and let you dilate upon your
Well, it's the neocon playbook. Now, people will say, oh, but they get us in these shooting wars and whatever. They never really go all in. They never actually fight them themselves. They're all proxies. They won't take on anything head on. And for the last, I don't know, since 1941, none of that stuff has actually come home. You know, it just weighs on the sort of lower class folks who, have loved ones in the military. So, whatever. But it's just, it's just Kissinger, realpolitik, sleazy shit. And we're getting, and we're seeing a couple of other cultures that are on this globe that don't do politics that way. We're getting ready to run a little lab experiment here and see which politic is proper. And I already know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, that's why I am where I am at the moment.
Violence is, what is this saying? Violence is the last resort.
Who's saying?
Asimov's violence is the last.
Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent.
Right. Unless Hambrick is really competent and he's somewhere dangerous and he realizes that if he doesn't sucker punch that guy right now and break his nose, he's going to get curb stomped.
Well, the theory would be that you getting yourself in that situation is your incompetence.
Well, right. But that assumes that, that we get to choose the situations we're in. Right. And,
yeah, which the Foundation does, or what Hari Seldon had got to do, is to pick all the situations and tilt them so that you could just wait it out and do your nonviolent trickery stuff.
Right. Right. So you got a bunch of people at the Rand Corporation, like wargaming these things. You got their little, they're wargaming. They're trying to figure out, doing tabletop gaming, trying to figure out what will happen. If we do this, what will they do, et cetera, trying to put themselves in a position to wield power without actually using power. There's a lot of talk right now about kind of on the right about like information war and about soft power and how Russia hasn't won the information war. And I'm like, you guys are fucking retarded. They don't care about the information war. They're destroying their enemy's ability to fight. They don't care about information. They want to apply force where they want it, and they're able to do that. So this idea that we've got...
Yeah, well, winning the information war, losing the fertilizer war.
Right. It's ridiculous.
It's a problem.
Well, the people on the right are like that all the time. As much as I enjoy our memes, it doesn't do anything to the opposition. They're like, oh, ridicule them. They don't care. People on the left will say things to me that they think are clever and would, somehow, make me think less of myself. But I don't care what they say, and they don't care what we say. The memes don't work. They might be good for our own morale, but they don't do anything to the opposition. Like, you have to actually apply force. And, there are certain circumstances where information has some force or can be used as a weapon. But, not if your opponent's not on the same banking system as you are, not if they're not on the same internet as you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever.
Well, I don't know.
I can't even read books anymore. Everything drives me crazy.
You can't read this book anymore?
I can't hardly read anything anymore.
I'm sorry. That's a problem. Maybe we ought to just read poetry.
Oh, I certainly can't read that stuff. Who's got time for that?
Okay, then maybe what should we read?
It's old stuff, man. I got to read the old stuff,
Thomas Aquinas and the Handbook of Selecting I-Beams for Proper Loads or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Well, all of the reasons that I think this is a bad book, a good bad book, are things that Isaac could have figured out had he read older stuff and realized that this doesn't make any sense without a telos. I mean, what's the point of reestablishing the Galactic Empire? It's kind of a joke later in the book, the traders. So the way they do it, first they create a religion, the Foundation religion, complete with priests and holy food. It's a mockery of Christianity. But later on, when the traders come into power, they're establishing influence by selling nuclear-powered appliances to housewives.
Mm-hmm.
As if this is the good. The whole point of progress is scientific progress, which is a circle. The point of progress is progress. That's no good. So the Foundation is kind of like, it recalls to me the monasteries that would preserve learning after the legions wouldn't come anymore. But the monasteries had an idea, they thought, of the telos, of life.
And they didn't have to be tricked into preserving the information.
Unless religion's all a sham figured out by the foundationists.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
We were in a monastery last Sunday, and they don't care. They've got a vision of the good life. And that vision requires what? That they have adequate time to pray all day, that they have food, that part of their mission is to provide spiritual benefits to the visitors who come visit, but it's an awfully long drive to go visit across roads flooded by springs. They're not doing it to save the world in a conventional progressive sense.
Nor I.
But they are selling cheese, and it was excellent.
Did you get that cheese with the caraway seeds in it? They sell?
We got Gouda, and we have a fennel Gouda we haven't tried. The Gouda was gone. We went to a swimming hole after the monastery, and that cheese was pretty much gone by the time we got there.
Yes, that's good. Good.
Very good. $6 chunk of cheese, but you got to drive an hour and 10 minutes to get it.
It's worth it.
So this is like, the foundation's like a secular fake monastery set to bring the goods of science to the galaxy that needs it. And I'm just saying, Isaac, why are they doing this? Who cares if there's a bunch of petty kingdoms in the galaxy? How does this make life better to have it unified in one political organization? That's the big gaping flaw. That, and for me, the seductive idea of psychohistory as a smart aleck 12-year-old, whenever I read this book, probably read it in 1978. I wasn't 12 then, but I was precocious. And having this idea, math can predict everything. Everything's predictable. Well, if everything, what's not predictable? Persons. The idea of a human person versus the idea of a predictable conglomerate. These are contradictory things. And so if you start to get seduced by this idea, the first problem in this book is psychohistory. The second problem is, why are they doing it? The third problem is, even in the way the story is told, it takes exceptional men who can't be predicted to make everything happen. You needed Hober, whatever his name is, Hober Mallow and Salvor Hardin. And so I don't think it works. But as a young man, you start thinking, you look at other people and you see math equations. I mean, this is a way to sociopathy.
This is written in 41?
51.
51.
Published in 1951.
The Austrians, the economists, have already been talking about their rational market theory and efficient market theory, rational market theory, that markets are rational, that they do things for specific reasons and it's explicable. And the efficient market theory says that prices reflect all available information that's relevant to that asset or service. They proceed from there, right? They make two assumptions: that the price is meaningful of everything, and that people will make rational decisions based on that price. And then they go from there, and chaos ensues, right? Then you end up with fiscal policy, right? Then you end up with tax policy, and people, our managerial class makes decisions to try to get us to behave the way they want us to behave using incentives. And we just never stop with this stuff. That's why I can't hardly read any of it. It's not science fiction.
Yeah, so what were my three problems? That was the first problem. The psychohistory makes you a psychopath. Mm-hmm. Sociopath. What's the difference?
I think the psychopath cannot understand emotional states of other people, or maybe does not care about the other's emotional state. A sociopath just does not adhere to social conventions. I believe this is the difference.
Oh, okay. So psychopath is probably what this is, psychohistory, psychopathy. So, everybody is a collection of stimuluses and responses that you can engineer. And you probably do care about their emotional state, but only because you know which levers to push.
This website I'm on right now says, in a clinical setting, there's no actual difference between sociopathy and psychopathy. Those sociopaths may have little empathy and a habit of rationalizing their actions, but they do know the difference between right and wrong. Psychopathy involves no sense of morality or empathy.
So anyway, they have these Seldon vaults. They have the Hari Seldon vault. I don't know if he's buried in it, but it's this thing that they built on Terminus. And every now and then, Hari Seldon pops up, even though he's dead, with recorded messages that, confirm or tell them things that they need to know in order to keep the plan moving. It's in one of the later books, the plot is that they get out of sync. The predictions go wrong, and so they have to fix everything and get back on Seldon's plan. And he says, so they had been established as an encyclopedia. We're going to go make an encyclopedia, like, was it St. Isidore? An 800 or 700 main encyclopedia to preserve knowledge. But Seldon says, the Encyclopedia Foundation to begin with is a fraud and always has been a fraud. It's a fraud in the sense that neither I nor my colleagues care at all whether a single volume of the encyclopedia is ever published. It has served its purpose, since by it we extracted an imperial charter from the emperor, by it we attracted the 100,000 humans necessary for our scheme, and by it we managed to keep them preoccupied while events shaped themselves till it was too late for any of them to draw back. All right, so if we were reading this in seminar, which we wouldn't, it's not that good, I would say, is Hari Seldon a good guy or a bad guy? Because what he's admitted here is, we lied to you. We got you to move across the galaxy. And we kept lying to you until it was too late for you to do anything else.
Is he a good guy? I don't know. Do you believe in the noble lie? Can you lie? Is it okay? Ever?
I might believe in the noble lie if the noble goal was high enough. You're driving your truck through the Badlands, and there's bandits on the horizon, and you turn around and you tell your kid who's crying, it'll be okay. Well, that's a noble lie. Or maybe it's a noble hope. Mm-hmm. But you want the kid to calm down so that you can drive him out of there. But it's Mad Max time. It's probably not going to be all right. So a noble end could make a lie noble. Or maybe make it not even be a lie. But so is the noble end of shortening the galactic collapse enough to take 100,000 people, lie to them? This is where psychohistory leads to psychopathy. If you think people are functions whose inputs you can manipulate, even in the aggregate, then they're people you can manipulate.
Yep.
I thought very interesting on page 95 about not stopping the galactic fall. Seldon says, we do not wish to, for imperial culture has lost whatever virility and worth it once had. And I'm thinking, oh, well, there would be an end if he had it. Mm-hmm. I know people out there saying, you're overreading Asimov, it's just science fiction fun. But, it's what I do. And it's a real popular series. It's very influential. I think Amazon's even making a series for it.
No, Asimov and all the science fiction magazines and the radio shows like X-1 and all that stuff from this era are one of the reasons the boomers are the way they are.
Yeah, probably me too. I read all their stuff.
Yeah, they were inculcated or with a worldview that is out of fiction. They think that everything is always going to improve. They think that science has the answer, and they see that sort of history or the scope of time is a character and acts in and of itself, so they don't have a responsibility, right? Like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to take action. I don't have to preserve this. I don't have to do anything, because progress is going to fix it, and it's all going to be okay. So I'll go buy my RV and spend the kid's inheritance and, whatever.
What if you bought land and an RV and parked it there? And then occasionally took the RV to the lake. Would that be okay?
Well, that might be called thrift. But see, the boomer would buy the land somewhere around 2,000 miles from where all their kids and grandkids are, and they would go there just in the winter, Christmas, right? And then they would come back every now and then and park in the driveway of, one of the kids and just, be an interloper for a week. So that's not what they do. But, they don't really have a responsibility because, science and the scope of history is going to take care of things. This is one of the reasons why you hear from the modern person, well, they're going to be on the wrong side of history. Well, how does that fucking happen? What does that mean?
How does history have a side?
Yeah, what are you talking about? What does that mean?
Well, you see, Scott, it's the Hegelian dialectic as the working out of the freedom of the human through thesis, antithesis, and synthesis.
Yeah, you're right.
To be instantiated in the Prussian state of the 1800s.
Yeah, you're right.
It naturally happens. It's the working out of freedom over history. You can't stop it. You can only be on its side or not on its side. Right? History has a side.